Triple Shot Mindset. So tell me,
Even that.
what's it like being twins?
You know what? It's a gift and a curse.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about the curse side. I can figure out the gift for
Curse
myself.
is fearing the other person dying.
Oh.
Curse is always worrying because it's something that's bad happening. It's happening to, if all this happening to him, it's happening to me too.
Mm-hmm.
I see other siblings not having that closeness. And it's like, my sister's depressed. My sister broke up with a boyfriend. Okay, anyway, what do you want for dinner? I find myself losing my appetite, not wanting to do anything with my family. I just want to think about him and try to see what I can do to help him out. Okay.
So what he goes through, you go through.
Mm-hmm.
So you both feel each other very intensely.
Yeah.
I think that has to do with our upbringing. If we weren't even twins, I think we would still feel the same way because of the upbringing.
Yeah.
Because I know twins who are twins and they live separate lives.
Yep.
But him and I, because we were in kind of a sheltered, triangular-shaped relationship with our mom growing up and being sheltered from everything else and relying on each other for support and happiness, that created that dynamic that him and I have. So I think if we were growing up differently, had both parents present at all times and had an extended family, cousins and all that, then we would probably still love each other and be close, but not as close as what he's describing now.
Yeah. What do you think is the spiritual purpose in the bigger picture for your two closenesses?
I mean, I think you should have a better idea of that. But when Kevin goes to Vietnam or different places and random people tell him that your spirit is very elevated and, you know, it's ascending through the ranks. And people tell me, well, you need to be kinder. You know, you need to be more this and that. I feel like maybe we don't have the same spirit, obviously. We have separate spirits. But I think maybe he came with me so I can be his yin to his yang or vice versa. And he helps me be grounded and I help him be a little bit more edgy. But I think at the end of the day, we're both going in the same direction. Yeah.
Wow.
What about you?
That was beautiful.
Was it?
That was legitimately a beautiful way to put it. You both provide contrast and balance to the other.
Just like last week when he was wearing all white and I was wearing all black.
Yes, and that was not arranged.
No.
It was just an intuitive thing.
If he would have just worn his white jeans that I got him the other day, I mean, he said he's going to look like a male prostitute from the 1980s.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, dude.
In 2018, for the month of November, I did something called a month of purity. And I did this for a spiritual purpose. Was it 2018? I think it was 2018. And I wore nothing but white the entire month. I ate no meat. I meditated 1 to 2 hours a day. And I laid off on certain activities that could be considered non-spiritual.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I didn't watch violent movies or scary movies. It was just like a month of
Purity.
But how do
in every sense.
But how do you block out stresses from parents, from brothers, from boyfriends? How do you block that out to be 1 month at peace with yourself and pure?
Well, I didn't believe that I could create peace necessarily or block out stress. This is a better way to say it. Instead of trying to block out stress, I just went out of my way to create peace. And I remember I was going to Cerritos College at that time. Interestingly, a whole new demographic of individuals who had never been attracted to me before started hitting on me. I was friends with my ex-fiance at that time and we saw each other regularly, but there was like this very peaceful aura that came with that. And I remember I walked into Chipotle once to pick up a burrito long before I worked there.
Wow.
And someone was like, hey, you going to take me to yoga class or what? It was just like a whole thing. People didn't know what to make of me. Someone asked if I was a psychic. At that time, I wasn't practicing much that. And I was like, no, not a psychic, just doing this month of purity thing.
How about a tall white, the Nordic whites?
What about him?
Then did you look like one of them?
I don't think I fit into their ranks being a brunette with brown eyes.
Okay.
But It was just an interesting time.
You know the running of the bulls in Spain right now, right? They have that like every year.
Is that where someone jumps out with a red tablecloth and then tries not to die?
No, everyone wears white with red, either like, shawls or red, whatever's. And they run in front of the bulls that are charging out of
like 50 bulls. They open the door.
You haven't
and they
seen this?
Run into the street.
And people
it's
or
called
bulls?
running of the bulls.
No, there's a whole crowd gathered in the street.
Okay.
Like 500 people.
With a barrier.
With a barrier. And then all of a sudden,
500, like maybe 10,000 people.
yeah, thousands of people. All of a sudden, they open the floodgates. These raging bulls just attack. They start chasing these people down the city streets.
And people take
get
refuge
gorged.
by the walls, by like a gate of someone's house. They just
Some
step
people
out of the
get
way.
like gorged and they fall to the ground and they get stomped
You haven't
on.
seen this?
I feel like I saw one clip of one guy getting killed by a bull
Yeah,
years
that's
ago.
it. That's it.
That
So
was-
everyone at that ceremony, they wear white
With a red.
with a
Yeah.
red.
That's to make themselves visible.
Yes. It's to make you completely white and then put some red spot on you. Okay,
I
attack
think
me.
that red spot presents the bull's blood, because when you go to Spain or Mexico when they do bullfighting, like the whole thing is like I personally hate it because it's the worst, cruelest way to kill an animal. The matador, by the way, what is matador? CSUN matadors?
Yeah.
That's where we went to school. So the matador goes in the middle of this whole circular arena, and they let out a cow, a bull. And the bull starts running around, and you're just waving this red thing in front of him. And every time the bull passes you by, you put a dagger inside his back.
A new dagger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like many daggers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So within like 5-6 minutes, the bull has
Tons of blood.
10 or 12
Gushing.
daggers hanging out of his back. Everything's red here because he's bleeding to death. And that they call that bullfighting, right? So as part of this ceremonial thing, they let all these bulls out of the cage during this time of the year for a weekend. And people just gather around and they try to get the bull to like get as close to them as possible without killing them. And to them, that's fun. So when we're talking about the white shirt or white
Yes.
everything with a little red, shawl or whatever, to me that represents, well, because I saw it on the news the other day, it reminded me of this running of the bulls.
This is so interesting to me. What did cows and bulls do to be targeted by societies across the world, except for India, as like these animals that we torture?
I think in back in the about 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, when the Persian Empire recreated polo, the sport that you sit behind on a horse and you hit a ball, right? Polo is a sport. So it was created in the Persian Empire. The Afghans, who were next to Persia, they didn't use a ball; they used a goat's head. Right? So that was the ball that they kept on. So I think from early on, primitive days, we either played with these animals before we killed them,
We
or
had no
played
respect
with them
for them.
afterwards, after they were dead.
Yeah, both.
Both. So to me, it's, and like we wear the shoes that are
Yeah.
made out of
Yep.
skin, which is a very, like, why would,
And we have
People-
handbags, the
handbags.
upholstery of the car.
yeah.
We don't value them. They're like the Kirkland brand versus the Gucci brand.
Yes.
Right? We
Yeah.
don't value them at all.
So why?
Not sure.
Whoever came to this, and when there's a UFO abduction or when they come down to mutilate things, they freaking start with the cows.
Yeah, it's like, what the heck is it about a cow?
Why the poor cow can't get a break?
I read
No,
somewhere
the
that
cow and the bull are both.
the population of cows/bulls in America is more than population of people.
I believe that.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's global. I think not
It's not
just
like there's like
America.
350 million cows in America. There's 300 million people.
Wow.
But it just makes me wonder what's so special about that animal that we
I
use and abuse it to such a degree.
yeah. I think they're just big,
Yeah.
lots of meat.
I think by nature they're gentle animals. They're not going to
Yeah.
attack you
Yeah.
back.
And they're herbivores, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're,
So I
they're
think,
not even meat eating.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not lions or
but this is a metaphor of how people get treated
yeah. If
in a
they're
relationship or whatever at work. if they just put their head down and they're just kind
Mm-hmm.
and they don't say anything, they just stand there and just do their thing, because you're gonna get abused, you're gonna get disrespected, you're gonna get stepped on. So in Iranian culture, when we talk about someone being dumb, we say gov. Gov is cow.
Oh.
Like, you're such a gov, right? We associate that with that poor animal. Also, donkeys. We say khar, which means donkey, or gov, which means cow, just to paint someone as an idiot. So, I mean, I feel bad that we do that as a culture, and that's why I'm trying to be a vegan or vegetarian at least.
Yeah, we saw that one today.
Yeah.
Well, we had
Oops.
the carne asada burritos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a typical choice for me
No,
or for you guys,
no.
but we did it.
But what's the difference between the life of a cow and the life of a fish? Because people say, you know what, be a pescatarian, just have fish.
Yeah.
They don't know anything. You can't say the same thing about
Research
cows.
shows that fish do know things and have reactions and have their own nervous system and biosphere and all that. So I'm not so I don't know the answer to that question. I know that in nature animals eat animals.
Yeah.
I know that humans don't have to eat animals to survive. We choose to eat animals.
Yeah.
Well, the canine teeth suggest differently.
Yes, but we don't typically
No, yeah.
run and destroy raw meat.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if I said chase down that rabbit, you'd still want to cook it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or would you go for it?
Depends. If I had no clue what cooking was, like tribes in the Amazon,
Yeah.
you just eat whatever and just
Yeah.
take a bite out
That's
of it.
true. Or
Yeah.
snake,
Yeah.
fish.
So I have this thing growing under my armpit, right there. And it's a lipoma.
Thanks for showing us. I mean,
Sure.
I didn't get a good look, but
Yeah. Just like a little hard-boiled egg under my skin.
How do we go from fish
Here,
to
listen.
I'm sure there's a connection
listen,
if we
bro.
wait long enough.
He's never. You gotta understand where I'm going with this stuff. Okay, so it's a hard-boiled egg under my armpit.
Okay.
Right. And so yesterday I told my mom, after I went to the surgeon said we're gonna, cut it open. We're gonna squeeze it out. We're gonna put a drainage
Can
bag.
you take a video of it?
of the operation?
Can we?
Yeah.
I'll ask for a live feed.
So they said they're gonna have a bag, a drainage bag, like hanging over here for the next week or 10 days. So I told my mom this. She's like, "Hey, that's okay. Come here. I'll take care of it for the first week." I'm like, "Mom, like first couple of days, not a week." She said, "I'm gonna go buy a lot of meat, and for breakfast you're gonna have eggs and steak. For lunch, you're going to have steak and beans. And for dinner, you're going to have a stew with like steak meat in it and rice. And you can't say no, because if you don't eat enough protein, the wound's not going to heal." And I said, "Mom, first of all, what do you say to animals out in the wild who are herbivores, who a lion, takes a bite out of their ass, and 2 weeks later, it's gone because their body is healing themselves?" She's like, no, as humans, we have to eat meat. And it can't be chicken, it can't be fish, it has to be red meat. So I think the culture, we've been programmed to think that that is the way to salvation.
I would like to interject. It's not just a cultural thing. The doctor said that. Years ago when she had the surgery, the doctor said something about red meat, the iron in there, all the different things in there. It is really good for healing, like for after surgery to have that, and it heals faster.
Didn't Topaz, our mutual friend, have absolutely no meat so that her
Yeah.
surgery wounds could heal?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that I could not get that for the life of me. I mean,
Someone help it make sense.
I hear some people say, "Don't eat meat." Some people say, "You have to."
Some
have
people
meat."
swear by veganism.
Yeah.
Some people are carnivorous. Like Joe Rogan went through a phase where for 30 days he ate nothing but like steaks and
Yeah.
liver and you name it, organ meat and such. Then there's the liver dude. You remember the Liver King?
But he was just,
I full of shit, I know.
Right.
But
Do you remember the Liver King?
I have no clue what the
This
liver
really
king-
jacked up guy who said all he does is eat like
liver and random raw shit.
right? And then he came, he wrote Joe Rogan a letter that I want to be on your show. I want to teach people how to do this stuff.
Was he full of shit?
Someone
He
hacked
was.
his emails and it turned out
Yeah.
he was on steroids and all kinds of.
And he was just lying about it just to get publicity,
yeah.
right? So I don't
Was
know.
it was it big liver industry?
pretty big liver. But what I'm concerned about is people thinking that meat will cure your problems. There's my doctor cardiologist uncle says don't eat red meat because it's gonna be bad for your heart. Another guy opening up my mom's toe says, "Oh, you gotta eat meat." Like, and he says this much meat, right? Like he's pointing out
Like a
this
foot
much
and a
meat.
half. Foot and a half.
I'm like, but is that like a flank steak? Is like, what's the width of it? What's
Yeah,
the thickness
how
of it?
big
Like,
is the bone?
what does this mean? Right? Oh, you got to have this. And so they haven't done any double blind studies to see if two people who get cut up for the same issue, if one of them eats meat and one of them has beans, for example, which one heals faster?
Not to mention, everyone's body chemistry is different.
Yeah.
Everyone's genetic makeup is different.
Mm.
I theorize that every individual probably has a different diet or lifestyle that would work best for their individual emotional and physical state. The one size fits all mentality, I always call it panacea culture, which is everyone's looking for the little pill or the little like meat or no meat or the diet or whatever. Like there's some supplement or something that's going to be the answer to all their problems.
Yeah.
And I was raised like that. My mother, God bless her, a brilliant person in her own right, but went through obsessions with like brewer's yeast and then lecithin and then raw egg yolks and then only meat and then only vegetarian and then all beans. And last I checked, it was like a mix of flaxseed oil and cottage cheese that she'd get a bowl of cottage cheese and pour flaxseed oil on. She said, because you can't get cancer if you eat this. And that gave her peace of mind. So she was willing to do and eat anything for peace of mind. And my opinion is that we can develop peace of mind by following our own body cues and doing what's good for ourselves. But that might be, what's good for me might be different than what's
Right.
good for you might be different than what's good for you.
Well, I think there's a difference between what's good for me, for example, and what I'm addicted to or my body craves in terms of, let's say, sugar, right? Because I have people, friends or family members who they go on a nice diet. My mom, one of them, like a few years ago, she had to go on a diet to cut out gluten, cut out all these things. She used to take oregano oil, and she lost about a good 10 pounds of fat. She felt healthier, but she's like, when I look in the mirror, I'm too, unhealthy looking.
Like too thin?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back having gluten again. I'm going to go back having sugar again. I'm going to go back to the way I was because that's the way I imagine myself being. The new me that's lost 10 pounds of fat doesn't look, quote unquote, healthy. So now she went back to this old way of doing things. But she's willing to put up with, like the other day, she's like, I have a lot of intestinal inflammation. I have this, I have that. I'm tired. I'm like, Mom, why don't you go back to the same diet? She's like, no, I know my body best. I need to have some sugar. I need to have this. But that's just feeding into what she's used to.
Yeah. She's not assessing objectively. She's assessing subjectively based on what she likes.
I was gonna say what you said. You weren't saying what you feel like. You're talking about everybody's body may need different levels of this and that to be at ideal.
Yeah.
It's not what you think. Mom can say anything she wants, but if her body, for example, can't handle gluten, she should not have it.
Yeah.
Somebody else can handle it. Okay, good for them.
But to her, when she looks in the mirror, she says, I don't look healthy. Because she's used to the one that was inflamed looking and, big boned, quote unquote. Now that she sees the other side, she questions whether or not her healthy choices were good for her.
Yeah.
And now she's back doing the same things, complaining about the same things, back on the same pills she was prior to this diet, but she doesn't put two and two together. So as much as I think you're right about the concept of everyone's body is different, whatever, I think from a 30,000 foot view, certain things cause inflammation. Certain things like dairy or sugars are not good for you. As a human race, we shouldn't be eating those. Gluten messes up with a lot of people. So why do we have those in circulation and not go back to the seeds and nuts and not peanuts, by the way?
Yeah. I agree to a certain extent. I think then it almost gets, though, if we go too hard to that, it almost becomes like the government trying to put rules and regulations on, like, oh, we're just protecting your health by outlawing this, and we're just protecting your health. Like, when does it become an invasion of people's rights? If you go to France, there's bread being consumed, there's sugar being consumed, and except their life expectancy, I think, is there's cigarettes being consumed. Mm-hmm. We know objectively that cigarettes are toxic for the body.
Wine,
alcohol, and yet their lifespans are longer. They've figured it out for what works for them. I mean, yes, you could take all those things away, but I think to your mom's point, sometimes the pleasures of life are good, that they're all you have. So having a little sugar kind of adds a sweetness that you don't have the ability to get emotionally from somewhere else. So in her way, she's supplementing for her needs, even though it's taking a toll on her body, it's sustaining her mind. Whereas in the other diet, her mind felt depleted, but her body looked better. You know what I mean?
Right. So in the European Union, they've outlawed a lot of things.
Yes. Yep. High fructose corn syrup. The different colors we have. Like, they don't allow Gatorade.
They don't allow...
But you know what, dude? When I was there, I saw Gatorade everywhere.
But maybe they don't use yellow number 5. Did you read the...
No,
maybe
I did
they
not
use,
know.
Yeah, because they have
color.
ketchup, but they don't have high fructose corn syrup in the ketchup.
So they have the same things. Like, why do you think the Fanta over there tastes different than the one here? Or they make their own cereal. They have their own General Mills. They have their own Kellogg's, and they make their own brand of cereals that don't have their fake colors in it.
Yeah.
But we allow that in the U.S. because there's so much money behind all these, entities that these things are bought from the FDA. The other thing is, over there, they're very limiting the GMO in your food.
Yep.
So that's why when I eat a steak here versus I eat a steak over there, first of all, the portion sizes are smaller. They take their time eating the food. So I go to a restaurant in Paris, it's a 3-hour ordeal. Not ordeal, it's a 3-hour experience, right?
Pleasurable.
You sit down, they bring you like a couple of, appetizers, very tiny ones, and they bring you a wine. And as you're sitting down and you're eating these things, half an hour goes by. Now your stomach sends signals to your brain that, oh, I'm beginning to get full, right? So when the main dish comes, the steaks are smaller. You start eating it slowly. You talk.
Because their food is art. It's not like, oh, I gotta have it and get full.
Right. So after 3 hours of having dinner, you consume about a third of what you would at a sit down, Denny's here. So, and their food doesn't have GMO. It doesn't have any other crap, that they have it here. So they live a healthier life. So they can supplement that healthy threshold with more cigarettes or more drinking because they're not putting all that crap in their body.
Well, they're having sugar. That's a major
they're having sugar, but they're walking. If you look at an average European, they walk 3-4 miles a day.
Yes. But what I'm saying is, you're making my point exactly, which is that there are ways to offset your pleasures.
Right.
They've just figured out how to do that. Here in America, I don't think we prioritize that because of money. There are vested interests in making people sick, and also no one gives a shit. No one's forcing sugar down anyone's throat, and no one's forcing people to go to McDonald's and get the biggest drink option and then finish the whole thing and get a refill. But you know that people are doing that. But they're choosing to do it because they're probably trying to escape or meet emotional needs, or we just don't have a wellness culture here at all.
Because of the same thing you said, there has to be a pill for everything. And like, if I eat unhealthy and I have type 2 diabetes, which, by the way, I think is one of the biggest scams in the world when you look at type 2 diabetes, because you have processed foods. And a lot of Americans, they have type 2 diabetes because they have processed foods. So when you have processed foods in your circulation, like, you're constantly eating it, when you have different dyes and chemicals as coloring agents and preservatives in your body, then you think to yourself, well, one day, if I get really unhealthy, I get to go to a doctor, ask for this, commercial I saw about, this pill that will fix everything.
Yeah.
I'll just wait till the last second.
Yeah.
I'll get that and I'll be saved.
Yeah.
But in our culture, in European culture, they have a wellness thing.
Yeah.
Like, they know how to, pull back certain things. Okay, I'm not going to, eat GMOs. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I don't have any yellow number 5 in my food. So that allows them a little bit more flexibility as to what they can consume. So their choices are also, if a government said no GMOs, no yellow number 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever, all these food colorings, and no corn syrup, I think from a government standpoint, I don't want government to overreach so much, but if they limited that, the healthcare costs would go down. People would be healthier. They would be more productive at work because they wouldn't have those crashes. So I think government owes a little bit of responsibility when people of its nation are so dumbed down that they can't make a right decision for themselves.
I'll tell you what. I think European, that channel we watch on YouTube, where the European guy pretends he's American while narrating the the scary videos.
Which one?
I cannot name names, but there's a European guy. He's obviously from Europe.
Oh, that guy.
Right. So,
yeah,
okay, we don't promote anybody here. We don't promote. But my point is,
he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. But the European culture is about discussions, civil discussions. I don't know everything. You don't know everything. Let's share. Let's talk about philosophy. Let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about this. And there's a feeling of, I want to learn more from every side. There's no fighting. I don't see it over there as polarized as this country is. In this country, we got people who, for example, for lack of a better example, they say sugar is horrible for you, right? Everything they read from that point forward is to support their own belief. Mm-hmm. Every book they pick up, every vlog whatever, it's all to support their own perspective. Yep. They will never say, oh, you know what? Let me see the other side too. Maybe I can learn something from it. So now we've become, don't debate me, I'm the expert in this field. Oh, Monavi, that's from Brazil. It's going to give you perfect health for eternity.
Well, that's an MLM.
Anything.
My mom was into that for a while.
Anything. No sugar. Oh, now I got to eat only animal fat. Now I cannot eat this. I can't eat that. I think everybody they feel like they're an expert. Yeah. In a way,
you don't think sugar is bad for you?
They choose a point and then they work backwards. Everything has to be reverse engineered to fit that.
And even if I say, hey, for example, animal fat is bad for you. No. This the only thing I know, and I'll fight tooth and nail to make my point that no, my point is right.
So I understand the paleo crap, like all that stuff I understand, right? But there's certain things, like I can name 5 things on my hand that are bad for everyone. Okay. Right? One would be sugar, right? Processed, like bleached flour, yellow number 5, blue number 4, high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils. Those are all bad for the human body. No matter what side of the aisle you're on or how much you want to eat paleo or not, those 5 things are really bad for you.
No, I get it. I'm just saying the perspective of the American culture is, I go to the weekend annex and take a class, and now I'm an expert on, for example, this or that. And God forbid I look at every other perspective and take it into consideration. I know exactly this is good for me, this is bad for me. But in Europe, there's a culture of openness to understanding everything and making a decision. So that's why in Europe, I think people are healthier. They understand the risk, the reward, everything. Nobody's an expert. Nobody's pushing big pharma, big sugar, big anything.
So I to your point, you're 100% right, and I agree with that. I'm just saying that's because the European Union has banned these 5 things I just named, right?
Well, they haven't banned sugar.
Or they at least use less of it, right? They use less of it. They have moderation.
Yeah, no. Besides diet, let's say smoking.
No, smoking.
Let's say anything you can think of.
But smoking is death for your body.
You can do that if you want to.
Exactly.
I can even hang myself if I want to.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think as a culture, let's say kids who can't make a decision, they shouldn't be able to smoke or drink, which is obviously the laws, right? But once you get into, like my kids who are 8 and 4, okay, I don't want them to go to school and have the lady cook up something with, palm seed oil in it. I don't want them to make some with yellow number 3 and yellow number 2 just to make a nice orange color soup for them. That has to be something from an institutional standpoint or a governmental standpoint that they have to be limited to. So we went to Albertsons to buy cereal the other day, and then my kids just ate cereal twice in their life, and one of it was with me. They said, "Daddy, can we buy something?" I'm like, "Buy something healthy." And a few years ago, I had heard that Trix are for kids.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Trix decided to change their colors from yellow number 5 or 6 or whatever to natural colors, right? So everything, instead of like being yellow, purple, yellow, orange, red, they were mainly in the yellows and oranges and reds because that's the natural colors they could get from different things. People complained that what happened to blue and green, right? People complained. So they slowly brought it back and reintroduced it. So when I went to the supermarket, I said, hey guys, if you want something colorful or cool, get the tricks, right? There were the other stuff that, are very healthy, but they say we want something, cool. I'm like, get the tricks, because I remembered a few years ago that's what they did. The government said, or Kellogg said, or whatever, General Mills said, we're going to remove those colors. So I picked up the tricks, and my other kids said, can we also have a Lucky Charms? Oh my God, one bowl, and I'm going to throw the rest of it away, because that's how we deal with it. I stood in line. I'm like, it still has sugar in it. It still has all that stuff in it, but at least it doesn't have the colors. As I'm scanning it, I hand it to my son. He's trying to put it in the bag. He says, Daddy, this one has red number, whatever, and yellow number this, and blue number that. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought they stopped it. And I picked up the other one, the same thing. I'm like, wait a minute. What happened to 3-4 years ago when they had that change of heart to change everything? I went online. It said a lot of people complained that the blues and the oranges or the greens gave their kids the excitement to have breakfast. And now that everything's yellow, orange, and red, they no longer have that draw. So they brought it back.
Oh, that's what's wrong with America. Corporations listen to what people want. More sugar, you got it. More color, you got it. There's no responsibility towards society.
Yeah, this is all a mirror image of our own lack of self-love.
Yep.
We say, why is America like this? Why don't we have a wellness culture? Because we don't love ourselves. Americans hate themselves, I think, more than any citizen in any other country ever. They're a slave to their own addictions and pleasure. I actually wrote an article about this, and I said that's why AI will eventually win. Because we are a slave to our own desires for pleasure. So, of course, a corporation will capitalize on that.
Yeah.
We're too young. Europe has been around a lot longer than America has. They've had their iterations of young and dumb. There's a... Do you know that fool saying? Young, dumb,
Yeah.
fool? Okay.
I thought you were talking about The Young and the Restless, a soap opera.
No, but throw
Young
that in
and
there
dumb.
too.
Yeah.
They've been young, dumb, and restless, and they've figured all that out. The American people have to want better for themselves. And we're at that stage right now where we want a magic pill to fix it all because we don't care enough to put the effort in to discover what's going to be the best for our unique body. And that's no one's fault. I think that just means that more generations are going to have to pass before we do better. Yeah. Sad, but true. Triple Shot Mindset.